has unveiled a new chip, hailing it as a milestone towards building a quantum computer able to solve industrial-scale problems in years, not decades. The Champions Trophy has already begun, and the next game is going to be played between India and Bangladesh today at the Dubai International Stadium. Well, 11 days after it ousted the Aam Aadmi Party to end its 27-year exile from the power in the capital, the BJP has named 50-year-old Rekha Gupta, the newly elected MLA from Shalimar Bagh, as Chief Minister of Delhi. In fact, she's addressing the media at the moment. Listen in.
कि भारतीय जनता पार्टी में नरेंद्र मोदी जी हैं तो मुमकिन है।
मैम, आम आदमी पार्टी की सरकार में जो भ्रष्टाचार हुए थे, क्या उस पर कोई जांच होगी? क्या कोई
जो सरकार पिछले 12 साल से दिल्ली में राज कर रही थी और जितने भी भ्रष्टाचार के मुद्दे उनके ऊपर है, जनता के एक एक पैसे का हिसाब उन्हें देना होगा।
मैम, लेकिन अभी शुभकामनाएं आई हैं वहाँ से, क्योंकि अरविंद
धन्यवाद है आप सभी के माध्यम से मैं उन्हें धन्यवाद देती हूँ उनकी शुभकामनाओं के लिए। दिल्ली के हित में वो सब काम करें तो बहुत अच्छा होगा। बिल्कुल, अलका जी और मैं दिल्ली विश्वविद्यालय छात्र संघ में इकट्ठे थे, वो अध्यक्ष थी, मैं महासचिव थी। मैं धन्यवाद करती हूँ उनकी शुभकामनाओं के लिए। धन्यवाद, थैंक यू सो मच।
Delhi's Chief Minister-elect, the BJP's Rekha Gupta, will take oath today in a few hours with 6 cabinet colleagues. Now, a mega event will be attended at the Ram Leela Maidan by chief ministers, deputy chief ministers of 20 states. We will have people from across the national capital. Diplomats have also been invited. So have industrialists and film stars. 11 days after it ousted the Aam Aadmi Party to end its 27-year exile from power in the capital, I beg your pardon, the BJP has named 50-year-old Rekha Gupta, the newly elected MLA from Shalimar Bagh, as the Chief Minister of Delhi. Well, we have breaking news coming in at the moment. US President Donald Trump has stirred controversy with an explosive claim regarding India's elections. Speaking at the FII Priority Summit, Trump has questioned the allocation of $21 million under US aid aimed at boosting voter turnout in India. In fact, the US president has speculated that the funds may have been used to influence the election outcome. He has suggested efforts to get somebody else elected. The revelation actually came after Elon Musk-led Doge disclosed the US aid allocation, triggering a political uproar in India, as we have extensively covered on NDTV. Trump has asserted that his administration would raise the matter with the Indian government, calling this disclosure a total breakthrough. And in staying with news regarding the US president, Donald Trump has denounced Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky as a dictator without elections and said he had better move fast to secure a peace deal or he would have no country left. Trump has now widened the rift with Kyiv while actually pivoting closer to Russia. The US president's recent exchange of insults with Zelensky and his apparent willingness to accept many of Moscow's demands in peace negotiations over the Ukraine war have stunned Washington's European allies. Even longtime US-Russia watchers were surprised at how swiftly Trump has seemingly turned anti-Ukraine and also adopted Kremlin talking points. Now, as Moscow and Washington look towards normalizing their relations, with the Kremlin suggesting American firms could do more business in Russia, they are meeting on equal ground as partners. Putin is actually no longer the kid slouching at the back of the classroom, as some experts argue. Just listen in to what Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky had to say.
But think of it, a modestly successful comedian. President Zelensky talked the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war that basically couldn't be won, that never had to start and never would have started if I was president, not even a chance, and it didn't start for 4 years. He refuses to have elections, is low in the real Ukrainian polls. I mean, how can you be high with every city is being demolished? It's hard to be high. Somebody said, oh no, his polls are good, give me a break. Every city is being demolished. They look like a demolition site, every single one of them. And the only thing he was really good at was playing Joe Biden like a fiddle. He played him like a fiddle. That's an expression we use, Yasser, to say that he's pretty easy, pretty easy. A dictator without elections. Zelensky better move fast or he's not going to have a country left. Got to move fast because that war is going in the wrong direction. In the meantime, we're successfully negotiating an end to the war with Russia.
Voice of America's Jessica Stone is with us with the latest update. Jessica, we've just heard Donald Trump inflating the amount of money the U.S. provided in aid and asserting without evidence that half of it is missing. He's clearly said that Zelensky's played Biden like a fiddle. How do U.S. officials and analysts interpret Trump's stance on Zelensky and Ukraine now?
Well, there's certainly quite a bit of alarm among analysts here in Washington that, as you mentioned, Donald Trump appears to be blaming Ukraine for starting a war that Russia, in fact, started almost 4 years ago now. And in terms of whether or not Zelensky had another election, they chose not to have an election in the Ukraine because of the war. They didn't want to hold one during the fight. Zelensky, meantime, has also said his fair bit about Donald Trump, saying that he is actually being influenced by Russian disinformation, pointing out that he is apparently captive to some of these Russian talking points. Now, Vice President J.D. Vance has been very explicit. He gave an interview to the Daily Mail today in which he said, Zelensky is getting bad advice on how to deal with Trump. You don't want to go head to head with him and criticize him in public. And he said, quote, the idea that Zelensky is going to change the president's mind by bad mouthing him in public media, everyone knows that who knows the president will tell you that's a bad idea. So that's kind of where things stand, but it does bear emphasizing that this is a really big shift in the U.S. position on Ukraine and on Russia. And while there are many who agree with President Trump's stance that the war should be ended, there is going to be a lot more devil in the detail as to how it's ended and with whom that agreement is made.
And Jessica, with Europe largely limited to issuing threats of sanctions, what does this actually say about its ability or willingness to counter Russian aggression effectively?
Well, Europe itself is not on the same page. There are some countries who want to provide troops to sustain a ceasefire. There are others who do not. They also have differing amounts and ability to increase their defense spending. There's a European Commission rule that does not allow them to count defense spending under the European budget limits. They're looking to change that right now. And the European position continues to be, despite that division, that the only way Ukraine will engage in these talks is if it has a European security guarantee. But there are real questions about whether Europe can even do that, whether they can muster the kinds of combat-ready troops that would be needed to do that. Yes. And so we should see this conversation extend into next week when we expect to see the leaders of England and France come to Washington to speak with Donald Trump. That, of course, is British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and French President Emmanuel Macron. They're expected here in Washington next week.
Jessica, as always, thank you so much for joining us with the Lowdown.
Good to be with you.
And Vladimir Putin has praised the outcome of talks between Russia and the United States and also assured Ukraine would not be left out of negotiations to end the war. But Ukrainian and European governments were left out of the 4.5-hour meetings that were held on Tuesday in the Saudi capital, Riyadh. However, Putin insisted that the Ukrainian president was not being sidelined from peace discussions, telling press that the US assumed both Russia and Ukraine will take part in the negotiating process. But the Russian president has also revealed that he was looking forward to continuing discussions with Donald Trump directly, saying that it will be a pleasure to meet the US president. During the 4 years that he was president, they had straight discussions on their bilateral relations. Putin actually said he would like to meet with the US president, but the meeting needs to be prepared to make it productive. The Russian leader has hailed Tuesday's talks between Russian and US senior officials in the Saudi capital of Riyadh as very positive. In fact, he actually said officials who took part in the talks described the US delegation to him as completely different people who were open to the negotiating process without any bias, without any condemnation of what was done in the past, and also determined to work together with Moscow.
Он изменил же свою позицию. Он сказал, да, потребуется полгода. Ну, сейчас не будем говорить о сроках, но это естественно, кстати сказать, абсолютно естественно. Здесь ничего особенного нет. Просто он начал получать информацию, объективную информацию. И эта информация, ну, как бы изменила его подход. Поэтому нужно какое-то время. Сколько потребуется времени, я сейчас не готов ответить. Но у нас есть желание провести такую встречу, и я бы хотел эту встречу провести. Но, повторяю еще раз, нужно ее подготовить с тем, чтобы был результат.
Well, you must also note that the US Special Envoy for Ukraine, Kyiv, has arrived in Ukraine. He indicated that he will report to Donald Trump after hearing about the current situation there. But Ukraine's public broadcaster has said Mr. Kellogg will meet with Volodymyr Zelensky and the Ukrainian military's commander-in-chief. But observers say Zelensky hopes to create an environment for talks with Donald Trump and also set a path towards realizing a peace deal in a fair way as sought by Ukraine.
Мені дуже важливо, щоб він сам походив по Києву, по іншим містам. Він ж сказав, що в столиці 20-30% столиці немає, все зруйновано. Я хочу, щоб він подивився. І далі, щоб він поспілкувався з людьми. Чи довіряють вони своєму президенту? Чи довіряють вони Путіну? Нехай запитає про Трампа, що вони думають після заяв їх президента. Мені здається, це важливо, піти просто поговорити з людьми. Ми не хочемо його водити кудись, нехай обере. Є тут посол, нехай походять. Мені здається, це дуже важливо зрозуміти наживо, що відбувається. А далі, як я і сказав, я готовий з ним поїхати на фронт, я поїду з ним. Так? Поїдемо і там нехай поспілкуються з військовими. Готові військові. Зараз терміново треба голосувати для того, щоб піти додому, для того, щоб все віддати русським і не мати гарантії безпеки. Ну нехай їх запитає людей, які тут живуть і воюють.
Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump's approval rating slipped slightly in February, falling 2 points to 45% according to a Gallup poll that's been released. Trump's first month blitz of executive orders and policy changes designed to reshape the US government has deepened electoral divisions. So while 93% of Republicans approved of Trump's performance, according to this poll, only 4% of Democrats and 37% of independents concurred. The 89% partisan gap is the highest that Gallup has recorded during any presidency. And of his policy agenda, Trump's promises to ramp up deportations of migrants enjoys relatively high support, but the share of those who think the economy is on the wrong track actually rose to 53%, which is up 10% from January, according to a new Reuters Ipsos poll. Well, let's switch tracks now. Pope Francis, who is battling double pneumonia, has shown slight improvement, according to the Vatican. The 88-year-old pontiff remains in a stable condition in Rome, where he was admitted last week after facing breathing difficulties. I can inform you that blood tests have revealed some improvement, especially in certain markers. And however, the Pope is dealing with a complex situation that involves a polymicrobial infection that requires an extended hospital stay. But public events, meanwhile, remain cancelled through the weekend on Sunday. And the Italian Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, who visited him, said the Pope was alert and even shared some jokes. Well, news and updates continue in a moment, right after this very short break. Do stay tuned.
Mahakumbh, a festival of faith, the world's biggest spiritual festival, the divine dip at the spiritual Sangam, a sacred confluence of faith, culture and heritage. NDTV's mega coverage of the Mega Fest. NDTV at Mahakumbh 2025. Big Budget Day. Big newsmakers on NDTV. Top ministers and opposition leaders.
ये by the people, of the people and for the people budget.
It is a fulfilling budget.
This is a development budget.
It's one of the finest budgets I've ever seen.
More than a bold move, it is a clever move.
NDTV, always the first choice of newsmakers. NDTV keeps you ahead.
Kumbh is the flow of the rivers, the direction of the stars, and the memory of the urn full of nectar. I'm here to tell you the story of Kumbh. Watch Mahakumbh Tales with me, Amish Tripathi, only on NDTV.
I've been reporting on all issues, big and small, from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, rest of South India, bringing you all the action, all that you need to know, all that you want to know.
The energy of Maximum City is infectious. I bring in that energy in our news coverage from financial capital Mumbai.
Covering from the southernmost part of India over the last 23 years, I bring in-depth and 360-degree coverage from the Dravidian heartland.
The land of Mishti is also known for its bitter politics. I have seen much water flow under the Howrah Bridge, covering Bengal in all its vivid colors.
Mahakumbh, the festival of faith. The world's biggest spiritual festival. The divine dip and the spiritual sangam. A sacred confluence of faith, culture and heritage. NDTV's mega coverage of the Mega Fest. NDTV at Mahakumbh 2025. Big Budget Day. Big newsmakers on NDTV. Top ministers and opposition leaders.
ये by the people, of the people and for the people budget.
It is a fulfilling budget.
This is a development budget.
It's one of the finest budgets I've ever seen.
More than a bold move, it is a clever move.
NDTV, always the first choice of newsmakers. NDTV keeps you ahead.
Kumbh is the flow of the rivers, the direction of the stars, and the memory of the urn full of nectar.
News coming in from the US, authorities say at least 2 people are dead after mid-air collision involving 2 small planes in southern Arizona. In fact, the National Transportation Safety Board in the US said it is investigating the collision near an airport. The Marana Police Department confirmed 2 deaths after responding to this crash. Meanwhile, the Federal Aviation Administration says 2 people were aboard each plane that was involved in this collision. In staying with updates from the US, rescue efforts are ongoing for the second day as water levels continue to rise on some waterways in Kentucky and other portions of the Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic flooded by a deadly coast-to-coast winter storm. This storm has unfortunately killed at least 14 people, and it took some of the worst of the devastating flooding in the region. Several others are missing as we speak amid significant levels of flooding in West Virginia too. Let's switch tracks now. Well, the death of a 20-year-old Nepali student at Kalinga Institute of Industrial Technology in Odisha has raised diplomatic concerns, as we have been covering on NDTV. with Nepal warning that it may reconsider allowing its students to pursue education in India if the case is not handled fairly and legally. But KIIT has announced a scholarship in memory of Prakriti Lamsal, the 20-year-old Nepalese girl student of the private engineering institute who died allegedly by suicide in her hostel room on the 16th of February, leading to absolute unrest on the campus, as you can see on your screens. Tensions escalated after reports emerged that the university authorities forced Nepali students protesting this incident to vacate the campus without prior notice. In further crucial news, Hamas will return the bodies of 4 Israeli hostages, including the youngest captives held in Gaza, today. 6 other hostages will also be released on Saturday, exceeding the earlier expectation of 3. This is according to the head of the Hamas's negotiating team. Well, in other news, Apple introduced a new low-end smartphone called the iPhone 16e that's priced at $599 aiming to revive growth after a sluggish holiday season. Now, this rebranded device goes on sale on the 28th of February and will cost $170 more than the $429 iPhone SE that it replaces. By the way, in case you're an enthusiast, pre-orders for this iPhone begin tomorrow, which is the 21st of February. As you know, the Champions Trophy has already begun and the next game is going to be played between India and Bangladesh today at the Dubai International Stadium. Now, this is set to be a battle between the 2-time Champions Trophy winners and the unpredictable underdogs.
The stage is set and the big guns have descended in Dubai. India, on the bank of their dominating show against England, will begin their campaign against Bangladesh at the Dubai International Stadium. The excitement is palpable and the stakes are high. India, backed by a stellar batting lineup and led by captain Rohit Sharma, will be looking to start strong. But Bangladesh won't be easy to beat. A talented young pacer, Nahid Rana, who has been making waves in international cricket, stands in between, along with the experience of players like Mushfiqur Rahim and Mahmudullah. The Dubai International Stadium pitch is expected to favour fast bowlers early on, with seam movement. But as the match progresses, it should become better for batting, making the toss a crucial aspect. After losing the finals in 2017 against Pakistan, India will be looking to rewrite history. Will India start their campaign with a win, or will Bangladesh pull off an upset? Usama Shab for NDTV.
Thank you for investing your time and watching this edition of The World 24/7. As always, we'll keep tracking the latest updates for you. Do stay tuned.
I've been reporting on all issues big and small from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, rest of South India, bringing you all the action, all that you need to know, all that you want to know.
The energy of Maximum City is infectious. I bring in that energy in our news coverage from financial capital Mumbai.
Covering from the southernmost part of India over the last 23 years, I bring in-depth and 360-degree coverage from the Dravidian heartland.
The land of Mishti is also known for its bitter politics. I have seen much water flow under the Howrah Bridge, covering Bengal in all its vivid colors.
Mahakumbh, the festival of faith. The world's biggest spiritual festival. The divine dip at the spiritual Sangam. A sacred confluence of faith, culture and heritage. NDTV's mega coverage of the Mega Fest. NDTV at Mahakumbh 2025. Big Budget Day. Big newsmakers on NDTV. Top ministers and opposition leaders.
ये by the people, of the people and for the people budget.
It is a fulfilling budget.
This is a development budget.
It's one of the finest budgets I've ever seen.
More than a bold move, it is a clever move.
NDTV, always the first choice of newsmakers. NDTV keeps you ahead.
Kumbh is the flow of the rivers, the direction of the stars, and the memory of the urn full of nectar. I'm here to tell you the story of Kumbh. Watch Mahakumbh Tales with me, Amish Tripathi, only on NDTV.
I've been reporting on all issues big and small from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, rest of South India, bringing you all the action, all that you need to know, all that you want to know.
The energy of Maximum City is infectious. I bring in that energy in our news coverage from financial capital Mumbai.
Covering from the southernmost part of India over the last 23 years, I bring in-depth and 360-degree coverage from the Dravidian heartland.
The land of Mishti is also known for its bitter politics. I have seen much water flow under the Howrah Bridge, covering Bengal in all its vivid colors.
Mahakumbh, a festival of faith. The world's biggest spiritual festival. The divine dip at the spiritual Sangam. A sacred confluence of faith, culture and heritage. NDTV's mega coverage of the Mega Fest.